Okay, guys, I have Andrew's on here too to help me out a little bit, so that's good. And we have 7 reporters on so far, so we'll get started. And I think the format here, because we are kind of doing something a little different here and talking about 2 topics in one press availability. So we are going to talk about the workforce stuff, and the order there will have the mayor, then Eric, and Melissa, Rachel, Kevin. You all can address that, and then we will talk about climate, and we'll have the mayor and Eric speak on that. If anybody else wants to, obviously they certainly can. And then we'll open it up for questions. Does that sound all right? Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.
So you go ahead and take it, Daryl.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Daryl Steinberg. I'm your mayor of Sacramento, and I'm very pleased today to be joined by my colleague, Councilmember Eric Guetta from District 6, Melissa Anguiano, the Assistant Director, Deputy Director of our city's Economic Development Department, Rachel Rios, the Executive Director of La Familia, and Kevin Brown from the Sacramento Sierra Building Trades here in Sacramento. We're going to have a 2-part press availability here. I know this is a little unorthodox, but we want to be efficient with your time here. The first half is going to be around workforce development. The second half is going to be around climate change. Maybe we shouldn't separate them because there's actually a link, but we will. So let's begin with the first half here today. I am thrilled to announce that later this afternoon, the City Council is slated, the City Council is slated to approve $10.1+ million worth of CARES Act funding for workforce development in the city of Sacramento. This investment will benefit 11,120 discrete Sacramentans who have been affected by the coronavirus and who need job training or job retraining in order to emerge and reemerge into our Sacramento economy. This $10.1 million, of course, is part of a more comprehensive strategy that our city has led to invest our CARES resources in our community. Just to take a step back for a moment, when we received word that we were receiving $89+ million of federal CARES Act money, we had several choices. We could have tried creative ways to plug holes in our city budget, or we could intentionally invest the money in our communities, especially our disadvantaged communities. And we have clearly chosen the latter. We have categorized most of the resources into 4 categories: housing and homelessness. And of course, last week, we put forward a very comprehensive homeless and housing policy that amounted to a full $62 million, of which 15.6 was from CARES Act funding. $20+ million for small business assistance, both forgivable loans to small businesses, including nonprofits, and the technical assistance to our community-based organizations to help more small businesses recover during this unique period of time. $20 million for the creative economy and for tourism. Next week, we will be approving most of the remainder of the money in that category. And of course, $20 million for youth and workforce development. We identified workforce development as a key priority at the very beginning, because we know that so many people have been affected in adverse and difficult ways, and that if we can put real resources towards helping people regain their footing in this economy, that we will not only help our economy, we'll help so many families. And so this list, which is comprehensive, we're happy to go through it, is basically divided into 3 priority areas. 1, a real focus on digital skills, upgrading digital skills for people because we are rapidly transforming to a digital economy. 2, the construction trades, because we know that construction has continued in Sacramento and will only elevate as we begin to recover, and we need more construction workers and link more young people from all of our neighborhoods, men and women, to high-paid construction careers. And 3rd is training community health outreach workers, especially poignant now during COVID, as we see the growth in this terrible epidemic, especially among our communities of color, especially among our Latinx community. And so we want to train healthcare workers in our neighborhoods to teach, to advise, and to help heal people who are suffering. And so an exciting day, $10.1 million and 11,000 plus people. Many of whom, most of whom I'm sure we will never know, but who are going to benefit as a result of today's actions. Thank you again for being here. Councilmember Guerra, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all our partners here today and for the members of the media here for covering such a critical issue. When this pandemic hit, it disrupted the lives of so many working families. Many of those families working in the hospitality industry, in some of our jobs, our hotels have been suffering. And in places where normally we would have so many working families who maybe didn't have a college degree, who didn't have specific training, a certification, but working to put food on the table, lost everything when the pandemic hit in March. And unfortunately, their ability to find employment in a new area has been limited by the fact that we don't have those resources for training. So this action today of $10.1 million to help upskill many of our Sacramentans here who have lost those opportunities. If for those folks who have the ability to work from home, who have maybe the white collar jobs that allow you to be able to use technology and work from home, we've been able to weather the storm at the moment. But for many of those who have been outside and don't have that luxury, unfortunately, they've been living on the edge. So this opportunity allows us to look at some of the areas in our city that are looking for employment. Our industrial and manufacturing area is looking for more workers. They've been moving and producing and providing for products for all over the country here that are being produced in Sacramento. Our areas like the future technology of creating the next electrical products, the exciting movement this upcoming week with the California Mobility Center and being able to train people for jobs of the future. And most importantly, breaking that information gap about this virus and about public health. We already knew we had challenges in public health before the pandemic in our most needing communities. We already knew there were issues of diabetes, air quality, health, public health issues affecting much of our community because of other issues like food deserts. Well, we have an opportunity here on tonight to fix those gaps, to ensure that we can quickly upskill people into the construction jobs, into the manufacturing jobs, and into the healthcare jobs that are needed now more than ever. We have an opportunity to help, bring back that work ethic and that work dignity that most of us want and we strive for. I know my family has always been proud of being farm workers, and they are still out there today, but many of our urban workers have lost that opportunity. We want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to get back to work, and not only just to get back to work, but we're providing something that is invaluable, and that is the skills and training that no one could ever take away from you. When we give someone education and training, that stays with people forever. So I'm excited about this, and I'm excited about working with all our job centers, folks like Asian Resources, the Urban League, La Familia, all of our American job centers, and our labor partners to pull together to lift each other up. So with that, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to all the participants, and it's exciting to get Sacramento back to work.
Thank you, Eric. And we're going to turn it over to our community-based partners in a moment. But, you know, it's not our job to run the programs. It's our job to help those who are expert and committed and connected most closely to our communities, to give them the capacity to be able to deliver on the promise. And that's exactly what we are doing here today. Before I turn it over to Rachel Rios, let me turn it over to Melissa for just a moment to just talk a little bit about the process, the number of applicants, and how we were able to decide upon these very worthy recipients. You're muted, as they say.
After my first grader just went through Zoom etiquette, I should know this. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your tremendous support and leadership. From the start, we knew that we wanted to utilize these resources to meet the needs of those most impacted in our community, and this is certainly one of them. After Council adopted the allocation of $10 million, a couple of weeks ago, the city issued a notice of funding availability. We received over 40 responses with the cumulative ask of over 22 million. Not a surprise given the demand and need for workforce development resources and skills and training. We then utilized an evaluation panel that consisted of members from the city's Investment Committee Workforce Working Group and a representative from the State of California Workforce Development and Human Services Department. We reviewed their scores and responses, all based on outlines and criteria that the council had adopted during the earlier on stages of the framework of this program. We then took those responses and applied a methodology that basically would allow for recipients to receive up to 75% of their requested funding if they received an average score of 80 or above. We did take to some exception in some cases, such as La Familia, who you will hear from shortly, and Asian Resources, who are both receiving their full funding request because they are meeting targeting needs and communities that have been disproportionately impacted by COVID. We also then applied some exceptions based on trades. As mentioned, there are key industries that we were seeking to target and meet with this process, and one being the trades and digital skills. So outlined in the staff report is how we applied our method to get to 30 recommendations of the 40. Of the 30, 11 of the recommendations are exclusively targeting youth, which represents about 15% of the funding recommendations. And in addition, 9 of the non-exclusive youth recommendations also offer opportunities for youth to participate. Overall, we think we're bringing forward a very comprehensive list that we think meets not only the needs, but provides so many opportunities for Sacramento residents who have lost their jobs due to layoffs or closures to receive the skills and resources they need to enter that career pathway again.
Melissa, thank you so much. I just want to add that, of course, this $10.1 million is in addition to the $8.5 million that the council has already approved directly for youth. I think we're up to about 18.5 in this pot, and so this is additive to the significant youth investments that we have already made. Let me now turn it over to one of our great partners here, Rachel Rios, who exemplifies what it means to lead in community, and we're privileged to partner with you. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council and Melissa. I know that a lot of work goes behind the scenes by a lot of city staff, so I appreciate the thoroughness of the application process. Let me just say that we are very excited to be recommended for funding for our community health worker program. In partnership with Sacramento City College, we looked at this project as an opportunity not only to train so many displaced workers, but to create a new career pathway in healthcare, which is so needed. We know that health happens in communities. We know that the spread of COVID and the stop of the spread has to happen in communities by people understanding the illness and chronic disease, by understanding that as well. And so having community health workers is a really vital element to the whole healthcare team, and to be able to provide them with a certificated program that can give them job opportunities for livable wage jobs is a benefit for our community as well as for stopping the spread of COVID. So we're very excited to be partnering with Sacramento City College to be able to provide this community health worker program that will support people going into this field and being then employed into healthcare positions. Again, we're very excited about this. This will partner with work that the county is doing in terms of contact tracers to be able to make sure that we are really reaching one of the most impacted communities, which is the Latino community, who has been severely impacted. And I think as sorry about that, as Councilmember Guerra indicated, with so many essential workers being in service industries, they've lost their opportunities. They don't have an opportunity to telecommute, so they're putting themselves at risk, or they're losing their jobs. And this gives them an opportunity to be trained in career pathways. So again, thank you to the city. We're very excited about this opportunity.
That's great. Thank you so much, Rachel. And last but not least, Kevin Brown. If you could touch on the investments here around the construction trades, that would be great.
Thank you, Mayor Steinberg. And to the council, we echo, we're super excited from the Sacramento Building Trades to be able to collaborate with the city. We are, obviously, as you mentioned, Mayor Steinberg, a lot of construction is going on. Several years ago, there was a model that we used for the Golden One Arena, and where we targeted 11 zip codes of the most impoverished areas in Sacramento. And so with this collaboration, we are able to revisit that and specifically target those in those zip codes, and also the most vulnerable. With the unemployment numbers being what they are, and some of the industries, in particular restaurant industry, being decimated by the COVID, this is a unique opportunity afforded us here in Sacramento to really be able to offer our state recognized pre-apprenticeship with the opportunity to direct connectivity of one of our 32 union construction trades. As I mentioned, with all the construction going around and going on, there is a tremendous opportunity for those that are willing to roll their sleeves up, willing to try something different and pursue a career that has benefits, dental, medical, vision, retirement, a sustainable living. We are really looking forward to this occasion where we can go after our young people, the transitioning age young youth that are out there looking for employment. We're able to help those that have barriers, justice involved, or veterans and women in particular. We are really, again, super excited about this collaboration with the city, and looking to extend an opportunity to help transform not only the individual's life, but their communities as well. So thank you, Mayor Steinberg, and to the council.
Thank you very much, Pastor Brown. We appreciate it. Mary Lynn, should I transition to the climate?
Yeah, well, maybe what we should do is, it's a little awkward, but maybe so we don't hold everybody up for the whole climate discussion too, in case you guys don't really want to do that. Maybe we answer questions on workforce first, and then go to climate.
Let's take questions on workforce. By the way, if there is a connection and a transition, which there is, part of the recommendations here is $1.4 million for the California Mobility Center. And Councilmember Guerra has been the leader in fighting for this innovative project to make Sacramento the center of alternative fuels and alternative transportation in Sacramento. This is the workforce component, $1.4 million. So congratulations, Eric. And even though we'll do the climate commission separate from this, I just wanted to mention that. Okay, let's take questions on workforce.
We don't have any questions in the queue on the workforce piece at the moment.
Well then, Rachel and Kevin, you're welcome, and Melissa, you're all welcome to stay, of course, for this scintillating presentation ahead. But if you also have to go, we understand.
We do have a question from Felicia Alvarez. Felicia, you'll be able to ask it live. Hang on just 1 second, okay?
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Felicia. Just unmute yourself.
Hey there. Yes, wondering if you guys have identified any possible employers or private industry partners after this program goes through and people get their certifications.
Yeah, I'll go and speak for community health workers. We have been working as part of a bigger project, which we're calling Sacramento's Opportunity Center. We have been working to identify employers, and so we do have some commitments by some employers that are interested in hiring community health workers. We also have been working with health industries to recognize this as one of the health teams. And so hopefully this then will push that and be able to do that so that community health workers can exist in other clinics as well. So yes, that is very important to us to make sure that we've identified that this is a career pathway that has employment opportunities.
Yeah, any more detail on that? I mean, are we talking about putting folks in clinics or working with some of the health plans that have a presence in the area?
So some in clinics, some in senior care facilities. Again, some we're also looking at taking the community mental health program and also incorporating mental health. And so that is something that a lot of our mental health partners need folks in that area. So that's also another area, some of our behavioral health partners that are looking for folks in that area. And then of course the FQHCs.
Gotcha, thank you.
All right, and certainly the mobility center itself it's intended to be a great industry draw. That's the whole purpose of it. As the digital skills, some in collaboration with UC Davis and Aggie Square, but beyond that, right? So everything, the decisions are being made here thinking about where the jobs are going to be and what initiatives we have ongoing to try to increase the number of employers that we have here in these growing industries. Okay.
Mayor, I just add that the Mobility Center is also an important partnership to all of the work that we're doing. So all of us, including in the trades, we are all working closely together because for La Familia and Asian Resources and the Urban League, we are all part of the America's Jobs Centers. And so we are all partnering together. So while we're working on this CHW program, that we're still going to be partnering on the CMC project. We want to work with the trade industries. So you can count on all of the Sacramento community partners to be working together with these investments, and so that the whole Sacramento can benefit from it.
Great. Melissa, thank you to you and your team. Really, it's outstanding work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we will begin the second half of our program here because today is a packed agenda. Not only do we have this $10+ million investment that we spoke of over the last couple of minutes, we are also going to have a major discussion and decision around the future of the Upperland Park neighborhood, including the Broadway corridor, and the opportunity for economic revitalization and more housing. In addition, we are going to hear from the West Sacramento Climate Commission. Now, this was an entity that Christopher Cabalden and I, together with our city councils, created a couple of years ago, and under the leadership of Ann Stausball, the chair of the commission, with stakeholders representing not only the ethnic and gender and racial diversity of our community, but sector diversity. They have come forward with a series of very, very important recommendations that we're going to hear today. And I guess the timing could not be any more appropriate, given the fact that you can't go outside in Sacramento today because of the air quality, obvious air quality issues relating to the fires. There are a number of specific recommendations, but here is my message. Just as we have elevated inclusive economic development as a key city priority, in fact, a lead city priority, we must do the same when it comes to climate change. Is there been any greater evidence of the consequence of society not elevating climate years ago than what we are all collectively suffering through these days? And by the way, we're not suffering nearly as much as other communities that are having to evacuate, and were huge swaths of property destroyed and obviously lives disrupted. And so the recommendations fall under a number of categories. Certainly committing ourselves to carbon neutrality as quickly as possible, but how do we get there? We need to engage in electrification of new buildings, starting with low rise and then high rise, and including retrofitting our existing buildings. And so we are going to ask the city manager, and I'm going to ask my colleagues to bring back an ordinance and a timetable so that we get going on an electrification program of all of Sacramento's buildings, new buildings by 2023 that are low rise, higher than 4 stories. Will take a few more years and we'll retrofit along the way. We want to put forward some real resources to invest in environmental justice and make sure that we're funding the right kind of community collaborative so that the people in all our communities have a voice. We want to jumpstart the slow streets movement, which is really exciting. If we can do al fresco in the way that we have done during the COVID period, we can transform some of our streets, 10, 20 miles worth of streets, to make them bike only and pedestrian only, with the community weighing in on where that's appropriate. And we want to launch that, and we want to launch it quickly. And then maybe most significantly, we're going to ask the city manager to appoint a climate lead in the city, because these issues cross over too many of our city departments. Public Works has the jurisdiction over transportation. The building department obviously over the electrification. Utilities obviously has a piece of this. We need somebody with the vision, the skill. Could be somebody from within the organization, but somebody who is driving the climate agenda here in Sacramento. We're driving it as the elected officials, of course, but somebody to help us drive it on a day-to-day basis. So I just think this is worthy of note, especially today, that we intend to lead on climate just as we are leading on workforce and on inclusive economic development. Councilmember Guerra, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today is clearly an example where particulate matters are high, but it's also, we all know that climate change is a real impact to all of us, and it affects us as a region. But also there is an environmental justice point of view here. Many of our communities who are around areas with high particulates, higher ozone, and when the heat rises, those communities are impacted the most. We know that those communities with less trees, higher heat island effect, have higher impacts when ozone rises because of that. We also know that communities, both in Sacramento and in Yolo County and West Sacramento, that are around particulates from ag equipment and from other heavy duty vehicles. We can do things to go and address those issues of particulate. And the number one issue we can do is figure out how do we get to more electrification where we can reduce our emissions at every single level. When you look at the data of which communities have the worst air quality, they're also the most low-income communities without resources. So this is a critical critical initiative, not just because it's the existential threat that we have as a world, but immediately it's an impact to those families. There are so many young kids who grow up with asthma because they are in areas where there are higher effects of this. But we can do things immediately now and start planning for the future to be able to reduce that. We've made great impacts by doing things like reducing the amount of wood burning stoves and being more conscious of the particulates. We have to go beyond that. That's why the investments on the California Mobility Center, getting ready for the industrial jobs that are clean jobs for the future, making sure that we're part of those solutions as well. So it's not only important to set high standards for the clean air, but also for us to be building the products in our communities, to be involved in also the benefits of those futures. So it's exciting to see these recommendations, and we have to work as a region because air quality, as we see it, isn't isolated by political boundaries. We have to find regional solutions, and Sacramento should lead the way. Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, I have to jump off here, but glad to answer any questions in the future.
Okay, thanks so much, Eric. Appreciate it. Appreciate your leadership.
Okay, so if you all want to answer questions, Andrew is on too and can unmute you, and you can ask them. If you just raise your hand and let him know, then he'll unmute you and you can ask your question.
Happy to take questions on any topic.
I am currently unmuting everyone, but I have no questions in the queue at the moment.
All right. A lot of people are muted currently, it looks like.
Okay, everybody is able to unmute there. Looks like Teresa's up first. She just unmuted.
Hi, Mayor. I was wondering, you mentioned the Slow Streets program. Last I heard in early June, the city was not had decided not to do that program. Can you kind of walk us through what changed and what the timeline will be for launching that program?
Well, we want to discuss it today. The city staff has come back to us with some significant costs if it is all done by the city, including the monitoring of the traffic cones and the other things that are necessary to maintain the slow closed streets. But not everything has to be done with city staff. In fact, this can be a tremendous neighborhood volunteer project. And what I want to do is ask the city team to come back in a short period of time and give us some options for how we can get started on this. We know we could get started, 10 or 20 miles at a time. You need to get to some scale because you don't want to make the streets that aren't closed in one particular area more of a traffic problem or destination. We want this to be neighborhood based. We want the neighborhoods to be able to choose the streets that they think are appropriate for this incredible quality of life improvement, where people can walk and bike and not have to worry about automobile traffic. And so it's part of the recommendation of our climate commission. Yes, it requires some early investment for one-time installation, but I want us to make this one of the 3 or 4 climate priorities for the first year of the implementation of the Climate Commission report. And today we'll get started and we'll ask for a timeline and various funding options so that we can show how spectacular this could be for our city and its neighborhoods.
All right, next up is Tony.
Tony from Sac Observer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Hey.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Steinberg, there was some activity going on at New Helvetia, CV Circle, which is now called Alder Grove and Marina. I can't get that name out right now, but the people are concerned about some of the projects that might be taking place at that area. I just want to get your thoughts on that. And I know there's going to be a presentation later on at City Council meeting.
I think tonight is an opportunity to answer many of the questions that are out there but let's step back for a moment here. First of all, our absolute commitment must be to ensure that the 751 or so households are cared for first. In other words, if under either the rehabilitation option or if some units are removed, that those families get quality comparable housing and get the first right to come back when the rehabilitation is complete, even if they have to move in the first place. Number two, our commitment needs to be to revitalize the entire area, including the housing, because frankly, I think we can do better than the quality of the public housing that has been out there for many, many decades. Third, we have an opportunity to increase the amount of affordable housing and workforce housing. Volume is important here. 751 units, there is the potential over time to build out over 3,000 units. And if it's quality housing, if it's a combination of market rate, affordable workforce housing, that's going to be a net benefit to that important part of the city and our entire city. Fourth, we must make sure that we preserve the historic significance of that part of town and the project specifically. I know the history of Nat Colley. I talked about Nat Colley in my 2019 State of the City speech. And whether we are talking about rehabilitation or significant new housing, there must be some sort of recognition and or monument, educational part of any new project that recognizes the unique contribution of Nat Colley and others to fully integrate Sacramento. And so I think we can have that all. Now there's a lot of questions, but that's what the public hearing is for. The other thing I would emphasize is today is only the approval of the specific plan. There is no project yet. The hard work is ahead to actually work with the development community and to actually bring to life something that is going to revitalize that area, provide quality housing for people, and ensure that we always put the people who are living there first. I look forward to the hearing.
I have no additional questions in the queue. Does anyone want to unmute real quick and ask a question?
A follow-up question on workforce training. So from last month's unemployment figures, we saw construction jobs in California go down about 14,000 jobs or so. How are our workforce development efforts, for the building trades, going to reconcile with potential losses in the construction industry? I mean, what do you guys see as that hope for jobs to continue to be needed?
Well, first of all, one of the things about the COVID period is we have continued to allow construction in our city, as you've seen with the Convention Center and Community Center Theater as prime examples. We are going to recover, and we're going to recover fast once we're out of this epidemic. And construction is going to come back big time because there's going to be a lot of pent-up demand. And so I think it is wise for us to prepare a construction workforce to meet what I know will be increased demand. This is not going to last forever.
All right, is that it, Andrew?
That's all I have in the
Okay,
queue. Mm-hmm.
Thanks very much, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.